And Hardeep ji, as always, what a treat it is that you've come down to have this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let us congratulate Hardeep ji. He has returned in the Union Ministry this time around. You all know him as a career diplomat. For the past several years, you've known him as a minister. Now, I'm told the longest serving minister for urban development. It's not a mean feat. I know that the environment and his boss is demanding of high excellence, and he's lived up to it. Hardeep ji, many congratulations, and great to have you back in the ministry, sir.
Thank you very much, Rishabh ji. I'm very pleased that you give me an opportunity to interact with you in what looks to me like a very active and vibrant group of not audience but participants, because I suppose at some stage you want me to interact with them as well.
We'll give it a shot. That's what we did last time when we had Hardeep ji on.
Since that's the pattern you followed last time, but I think you want to first take a few pot shots at me.
I'll try my best. But I'll take the practical ones, because the last conversation we had, sir, and if I could request everybody to kindly take their seats and maintain some silence. So the last conversation we had, right before the elections, you were mentioning how close we are to the saturation of schemes. So how close are we now to Pakka Ghar for every Indian, sir? How close are we?
Look, I would first introduce a qualifier. I'm no longer the Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs. So forgive me, I will give you very short answers there.
Fair enough.
I want to draw your attention to the union budget, which the Honorable Finance Minister presented. It's a 7th budget. My God. I think it beats Morarji Bhai's record also.
Yes, it does.
It's the 11th budget of the Modi government and the 7th budget presented by Nirmala ji. The provision for Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana in that, we have already sanctioned in the previous period 4 crore homes, both in the urban and the rural sector, and this budget makes provision for another 3 crores. Now, I should just mention that the demand assessment for this comes from the states. You see, land is a state subject. So you could say, what is the central government doing in housing? But I think the Modi government has proved that with a central government scheme which has 4 verticals, we've been able to assist the schemes. So I think if the tally goes up from 4 crores to 7 crores in the next few years, and there's private sector housing also taking place, and I say this with a great deal of humility, the fact is that the real estate sector otherwise is doing well. You know, there was a period before RERA when homeowners were shortchanged by builders. Then came RERA, the inventory in Delhi and around Delhi got cleaned up. Other positive things are happening, land values are high. Now, anyone familiar with real estate will know that what happens sometimes is this goes around in cycle, there is a boom and then there is a bust. Today we are in a happy situation. Large number of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana units will get built and the private sector will also contribute to this.
Okay,
but if you want to go into finer point, I will give you Manoharlal Khattarji's number. That's where you have to dial.
For sure. But, you know, the biggest point of conversation is that are the states rolling out the schemes equally effectively? Are there some doing better when it comes to central government schemes? You were speaking about this during when we spoke to you right after the budget. Is it uniform, or are there some excellent examples and some not so good examples?
Well, I think the last guest you hosted was Akhilesh ji.
Yes.
So you will forgive me if I made a transition from being a civil servant to being more of a political animal. I'll give you the instance of UP. And these are proven facts. The Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was introduced in June 2015. Akhilesh ji was then the Chief Minister of UP, and he continued to be Chief Minister of UP till sometime in 2017 when Yogi ji took over. We had the same number of civil servants, Uttar Pradesh cadre, I can name them. My predecessor in office, Venkaiah ji, tried his best. The maximum demand generation that could come from Uttar Pradesh at that point of time was 17,000 in 17 months. I took the figure for the next 17 months under the Yogi government, and that 17,000 became 17 lakhs. Same state, little bit of push from the top, and it changes. Now, some non-BJP states have also done well. I'll be the first to admit that. So it's not a BJP, not BJP. It's how seriously you take a scheme. My own view is that some schemes are very effective in some states. We ourselves need to replicate those schemes in other states. So it's a process we are going through. Saturation, yes, the saturation is proved by the point that when you started, what was the expenditure, or rather the total provisioning for the urban spend? If I look at the 10-year period from 2004 to 14, it was 1,57,000 crores. If there's another calculation, 1,60,000-70,000 crores. If you look at the R period, that has gone up 12 times. So 2004 to 14 is 1,57,000 crores. And if you look at 2014 to 24, it's over 12 lakh crores. So this is a country which is changing rapidly. And the urban transformation is staring you in the face.
Okay, now, of course, Hardeep ji is now presiding over a ministry that has a direct touch point. Now, so all of us are talking about we're going electric and renewable energy and, 1 crore solar rooftop units. We've been talking about ethanol. But are we also seriously talking about looking at oil and gas exploration afresh in this country?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have never been reluctant or shy to admit that no matter how much of green transition we talk about, our biofuels blending has gone up from 1.4% in 2014 to 15% now. We have a target of 20% for 2030. We're bringing it forward to 2025. But Rishabh ji, no matter what you do, you are still going to be dependent on fossil fuels, and you need exploration and production at least for 20 years. At least for 20 years. I'll tell you why. We have a population and a fast-growing economy. You grew at 8%. You're going to grow at 7% plus. Our rate of energy consumption overall is about 3 times the global average. But our growth of petrol and diesel, and which are coming from fossil fuels, is 7 times the global average. And the International Energy Agency has estimated that 25% of the increase in demand over the next 2 decades is going to come from India. So a fast-growing population, a large population, a fast-growing economy, and energy is the lifeline of the economy, which means if you got energy, you are growing. If you don't have energy, or if you're not using energy, it's a good sign that you're not growing. It's like that. Now you talk about electric vehicles, you talk about biofuels. I also want to bring in compressed biogas, etc. All that will happen. But believe me, it will have to happen simultaneously. You will need the crude oil for it. Today our crude oil consumption is about 5.3 million barrels a day. I see it in the next few years going up to 6, 7. And I see also the 15% becoming 20% biofuels blending. It will go up more. We are saving foreign exchange. We are helping our agriculture. But ours is a sui generis case. I think in the coming years, India will be the place where energy transition is taking place, but where the much neglected E&P of the past. So your question is a very simple one, and I've given you a long-winded reply. Yes, today we are putting more acreage under E&P. We have about 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary basin. The Prime Minister opened up 1 million, which was a no-go area because you had DRDO there, you had defense, other establishment. We opened it up, and I think with some actions we are taking on the administrative front, we are going to open up OALP. What is that? Open Acreage Licensing Policy, round 9 and 10. Pretty soon, that 1 million square kilometer which has been opened up will be available for prospecting. We put the data on in a repository hosted on cloud in University of Houston, Texas also.
Okay, potentially $100 billion opportunity in oil and gas exploration is coming up in India. Who would have thought in this day and age, but you've heard why it's important. Okay, but the basic question, sir, petrol prices, CNG prices, LPG prices, diesel prices, do you think they are going to be stable for the next few months and years?
Now, today in Parliament, one of my friends who's an honorable member in the Rajya Sabha, in response to a start question, asked a question, and I told the presiding officer, I said, I want to thank my honorable Singh. So I don't know what got into the presiding officer's mind. Why are you thanking him? I said, because he's bowled a full toss to me. When you ask me a question like this, your question is nuanced and very intelligent. can we hope for them to be stable or reducing? His question was, when will they come down? Now, this is ridiculous. India is the only country in the world where in the last 3 years, the petrol and diesel prices have actually come down. Your question is far sharper. Your question is, will they remain stable and will they come down? I have a simple answer. There are certain things that the government of India can do, and I think the Honorable Prime Minister has demonstrated on 2 occasions, November 21 and May 2022, he brought out the central excise rate, which brought down the price of petrol and diesel by 13 rupees and 6 rupees. The BJP states reduced their VAT, where the price differential between a BJP and a non-BJP state is about 10 rupees per litre. And you don't fill just 10 litres. You know, if you have a big car, and I suspect most of you do have big cars, they fill in at least 35, 40, 45 litres. So that's a fair amount of extra cost. But I have this political waffle thrown at me all the time, particularly by a party. I'm seeing Priya here, I better be careful. They will tell us that, you know, ये पेट्रोल के दाम कब बढ़ेंगे, कब कम होंगे? अरे भैया, हमने तो कम कर दिए, आपने कर्नाटक में बढ़ा दिए, इसलिए आप उस जवाब का आंसर करिए, आप सवाल पूछिए ही ना. So my feeling is, now I'm going to come to your question. Gas prices will come down. I look at the global situation, 2 things are happening. Our gas production, this is natural gas. You know, the cylinder gas is made from the crude oil in the refinery. But natural gas is brought in, liquefied, regasified, comes through a pipeline. By and large, that gas is about 20-25% cheaper than the cylinder gas. Our production has been going up, please correct me, about 18% every year. Plus, the global situation in 25-26 looks like we are going to, you know, go over the thing. There's more gas going to be available then, and we are signing long-term contract. So today we are importing about 50% or less of the natural gas, but we are importing 85% of the crude oil. Now, why? Because there was criminal neglect on the E&P earlier. You know, Rishabh, I don't want to blame anyone, but if global prices are reasonable, then somebody will tell you, यार क्यों इतना पैसा खर्च कर रहे हो exploration production में, बड़ा वो investment चाहिए, capital intensive होगा, ये होगा, उसे सस्ता खरीद ही लो. But the point is, it takes 3 or 5 years in order to be able to do E&P. It takes another few years to be able to put that production online because state governments, India is a federal structure, वो भी करना होगा. Then what happens after that? Then after that, you've got to start. अभी आपने पिछले 2010 और 14 में आपने तो कोई एकरेज अवार्ड ही नहीं की. उसकी जिम्मेदारी किसकी है? अब हमसे पूछ रहे हैं. और उनके जो वित्त मंत्री थे उस समय, I can't resist saying this. In order to keep the prices down, he floated something called oil bonds. Oil bonds क्या था? अगर मेरे को अभी दाम कम करे, आप oil bonds खरीद लो. तो 2008 से इन्होंने oil bonds float करने शुरू किए, and they borrowed 1,41,000 crores due to these oil bonds. And you know what happened? I'm having to pay back 3,21,000 crores. And I said in Parliament of Punjabi में कहते हैं, grandfather ने कर्जा लिया और पोता जो है उसके वो कर रहा है. I'm not saying Chidambaram is my grandfather. I didn't say that. But the analogy is the same.
Okay.
I think even on petrol,
yes,
you know, you can, the petrol price at the bunk is international cost of a barrel of petrol, crude, the cost of insurance, cost of freight, cost of refining, cost of the dealer's margin, and then you work it out. Bhai, the beauty of it is that even when our OMCs were incurring losses, we didn't pass it on to the consumer. India is the only country in the world where in the last 3 years prices have come down. Will they remain like that? The best I can say without implicating myself is I am hopeful they will remain and will not go up. But if another war breaks out somewhere else and shipping costs, they have to come via the Cape of Good Hope instead of directly from, the direct line from the Gulf, then I don't know.
Okay. There is a story, sir, which is we've discussed a lot, is that we have had substantial savings due to great deals in Russian oil. Now, it's great to have a foreign policy conversation about this, but that obviously translates to cheaper petroleum for the people of this country. Do we have the quantum, the mathematics of how much we potentially save?
Yeah, ऐसा है. That you got discounts is correct. But one honorable member got up in Parliament, he said you were getting it at 30% of the price. Now, I don't know which mathematics this is. if their international price is worked out by what? Brent, the Indian basket. So if the price you are getting now what $3.5 discount, earlier you were getting $5 or $6 discount, but the rest takes up. Sometimes the exchange rate takes it up, sometimes the cost of insurance takes it. Yes, we got it cheaper, but we didn't get it cheaper because somebody wanted to sell it cheap. We float a tender at the point of importation. So we want a particular grade of crude. We will say we want so many barrels, million barrels or something. We consume 5 million barrels a day by the time, 5.3 million barrels a day. At this port, delivered, it's an open tender, whoever bid. I've seen one calculation which puts the saving at what, $39 billion, etc. I don't know, some other calculation. I don't know, because this is imported by commercial entities with exchange rates. But by the way, what were you doing with the money? I can tell you, we were feeding 80 crore people 3 meals of dry ration in a day. We were doing other schemes. And today, if one party raises the price, another is willing to give it. It's a dynamic situation which you go through. But many of the figures that you see are fanciful. The real test is, were your importing entities, the OMCs, making profits? There was under recovery on diesel for a long time. There was under recovery on petrol for a long time. Under recovery on gas. On gas, they did a loss of 28,000 crores. Government stepped in and compensated them for 22,000 crores. On petrol, I think there's no under recovery now. Where the price is 85, it has hovered between 75 and 85. I hope it remains in this thing. But you know, if some thing happens in the Red Sea, the Houthis attack somebody or somebody attacks somebody else, then the freight rate increases, the Russian.
Right.
So I think all in all, you can say the way the government has navigated the price situation amidst global turbulence and the confidence that hopefully none of the actors to this wants a war, yes, I think we should be able to maintain the line.
Okay. I have limited time, so I'm going to jump a bit into the politics.
What was this?
Not the politics. This was the technical question.
Okay.
So on the politics, you've had the Prime Minister come out and said that the opposition is trying to silence me. They say that that the Prime Minister has said that they sit for hours trying to silence my voice in Parliament. They say that you don't talk and don't cooperate. Today Rahul Gandhi has spoken for 90 minutes in Parliament over all sorts of issues. Is there a conversation happening, or is it just a face-off still, even after elections?
No, I would say that first of all, I know the Honorable Prime Minister. I mean, I've been a part of his team for 7 years, but I'm one of those who doesn't talk about it. I've known him earlier also. Point one, the way his mind is wired, he can't be pressurized. And as far as silencing him is concerned, I think it's out of the question. So if anybody thinks he can silence the Prime Minister, it's not going to happen. Insofar as conversation goes, I think a conversation by definition is a two-way process. I think what we are going through just now, and I think the gas, not the Prakritik gas and natural gas, the other gas is running out on that. You see, when these guys went for an exam, actually, they were not entirely confident of where they're going to come out. So they set their sights a little low. They said, yaar, 40-50% aa gaye, pass ho gaya, wali kafi hai. Because in the previous Lok Sabha, that particular party got 42 in one and 50 something in the other. Though there were less than 100 in those two Lok Sabhas together. Now, in the third one, they've got 99. In all three together, 2014, 19 and 24, they've only got less than 200. So at less than 200, they think कि ये तो अरे तीर मार दिया यार, ये तो बिल्कुल हो गया. तो थोड़े दिन तो ये जोश रहेगा. But I think that josh is beginning to, show. When I see the discussions in the parliament today, they wanted to bring a discussion, I think one of them on this tragedy, really horrible tragedy which took place in one coaching center in the basement.
In Delhi, yes.
But they wanted to bring it. But who's responsible for it? अरे भाई तुम्हारी सरकार है आम आदमी पार्टी के नाले तुम साफ नहीं करवा रहे ये स्वीज पाइप से ऊपर पानी आया व्हाट डू वांट अ डिस्कशन इन दैट सो आई थिंक वी आर विलिंग टू टॉक आई थिंक दैट कन्वर्सेशन आई एम नॉट अ सूटसेयर बट आई एम अ स्टूडेंट ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स जब once things settle down I think conversations will also take place अभी तो थोड़ा जोश है अभी थोड़ा निकल रहा है, but
Okay, but what do you make of Rahul Gandhi now as leader of opposition? Because some can argue that he has now done 10 years of sangharsh under struggle, and it's not come easy to him, and he has now taken on responsibility.
Such a great leader, you can't expect me to make a statement on him.
Okay,
No, I've known. Look, for heaven's sake, I've known the young Yuva Neta, but he's 50, no? 54. Okay. No, I'm not. So, look, obviously, it's a new Rahul there. There is some Josh, but I'm not going to say anything, not on a public platform.
okay, but good, he took the responsibility, leader of the opposition, because
That's
he
the expectation. That's the hope.
Okay. What about politics in Punjab, sir? There's some troubling news here. You've had an election of an Amrit Pal as a member of parliament. It seems that the Punjabi voter is not really convinced which political party to pick. What do you make of the developments?
Why do you want to blame the Punjabi voter? First of all, it's a voter in Punjab. I wouldn't call it the Punjabi voter. Why do you want to blame them? They've had a raw deal. They had a raw deal under the Akalis, and we except some of the ODM, because we were junior partners in that Gathbandhan. We've had a situation in which the Akali Dal, instead of serving the interests of the state, they served their own interests. The Congress had the same thing. Then these guys came in like a breath of fresh air. हम भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ हैं, हम वो नशे की राजनीति खत्म कर देंगे, हम वो रेती की डकैती खत्म कर देंगे. And they ended up being more complicated and worse than all the rest put together. So, BJP's vote share has gone up 3 times. I think it has gone from 6% to 19%. I am hoping that once the full spectrum and all the dramatis personae there have displayed their wares, Punjab will also recover. Look, I'm a very proud Punjabi, but my Punjab, till the 80s, Punjab used to rank amongst the top states in the country in terms of development, in terms of contribution. And look, a small population contributing such large numbers to the armed forces, to agriculture, and then look what we made of it. Now we are number 22 at the in the list, gradation list. So I am very hopeful on Punjab. I don't think that the gentleman there now, today I saw an honorable member there wanting to know what's happening to the Punjab water situation, and he belonged to the ruling dispensation. And I found it odd. I mean, this is a question you should be asking the government in Punjab, Mr. Maan, now, rather than asking the central government. Even if it's a central government scheme, you have to make it run there. So Punjab, I think, needs, look at the situation in Delhi. It's a beautiful city, but if you go about administering it this way, the Jal Board, the, क्या उसको कहते हैं, बाकी वो इनकी जो संस्थाएं हैं, नाली वो PW नाले साफ नहीं करवा रहे, etc. Whom do you want to blame? Someone outside on Mars?
Okay, we'll be listening from Maan Saab just in a short while from now. But I know you're not a fan of Arvind Kejriwal, but Delhi is facing a problem. The DTC buses were brought during CWG times. There are lots of metro construction, RRTS construction.
I'll tell you a story
delays.
on the DTC buses.
Yeah, so there is a problem, and everybody seems to, say, it's not my job, it's not my job.
I'll tell you whose job it is.
Problem?
I became Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs on 3rd September 2017. One of the first issues I had to deal with was a metro fare hike case, because metro fares had not been hiked for 8 years. So there's something called a fare fixation committee. So in April of that year, I think it's 2017, there was a fare fixation committee. It said it will be in 2 halves. The first half of the increase took place. When the second half was coming, I was the minister. So Arvindji called me. Look, he's somebody I know very well. He used to drop in for lunch when he was not enjoying state hospitality. So what happened is, he said कि इसको आप भाड़े को बढ़ाइए नहीं. मैंने कहा क्यों? कह रहे देखिए सब लोग मेट्रो में जाएंगे, फिर पोल्यूशन की ठीक हो जाएगी, ये भी ठीक हो जाएगा. मैंने कहा अंकल वो 28,000 करोड़ का लोन दिया वो कौन लौटाएगा? तो then he turned around and told me कि नहीं आप तो को DTC. मैंने कहा यार DTC की 10,000 की सैंक्शन है, तुम्हारी 3,000 रह गए हैं. Those also you're cannibalizing. So I asked him, do you want Delhi Metro to look like DTC, or do you want to raise DTC to that metro? And Delhi Metro is a 50-50, Delhi government and this thing. He didn't like to pay for even some of the expansion project 4 till the Supreme Court made him pay. So I'm afraid the Arvind Kejriwal, my views on him notwithstanding, they may be good, bad or indifferent. You do not develop a country or a capital city with the freebies model.
You mentioned state hospitality. We all know what that means. But reading between the lines, Hardeep ji, when the jail time happens and eventually the bail time happens, the conviction rate for politicians is really, really low. They all, we see WG scam, this scam, that scam.
That's a discussion for which you'll have to give me another hour and a half, because I'll tell you something. Most of the politicians who have gone in that direction have not gone because the government has willed it like that. I mean, I can give you the case of TMC in West Bengal, the teachers' recruitment scandal. Some teachers went and complained. They went to the High Court. The High Court ordered an inquiry. Okay? In the case of the liquor scam, you can't base I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty. You can't base it, where is the money? No, read the judgment of the Delhi High Court. The learned judge, she said, look, it's not about Kejriwal the man, Kejriwal the chief minister. As Aam Aadmi Party chief, you actively solicited and received kickbacks which were used in the Goa election. I don't want to go into deeper whether that's a correct course of action, but that is what happens if you evade summons on 7 occasions. The summons, if maybe he had responded to the summons on the first time, we wouldn't have got to this stage.
What was then the result from Delhi? Was it a litmus test of the people on the arrest and the perception of corruption?
I don't want to draw inferences because none of those inferences actually work. You don't know what the factors are. For instance, in Delhi, we won all 7 seats, all right? In some other places where these factors are, things are different. I think the local population base votes according to what it regards as its understanding of what would happen. Now, in the MCD elections or in the Delhi or the Legislative Assembly election, they vote differently. But in this election, because there are national issues, they vote like that. So I would be hard put to do that. But I'm telling you, even the coming time, next year, BJP will do well. Because I think there is a certain process by which you understand what those parties individually stand for.
Sir, is there a difference between a couple of months ago and now, between a 300-odd member strength in Parliament as a single party and a 240? Is there a thinking difference? Is there an implementation difference? Or is it business as usual?
No, I would have said there would be a difference if the pre-poll alliance, had not produced 292. Yes, you want 300, you want 400, that's an aspiration. But in the functioning of the government, and I can tell you today we are on the 29th, all right, and this is the second week of the Parliament. I think in floor management, in response, I think the dum is back in our side. And if there was something, because there are people who are expecting more and maybe there is this thing, but I think we are getting not only the Josh back yesterday in the Lok Sabha, today in the last week in the Lok Sabha, today in the Rajya Sabha, etc. I had a start question. I think we are back in action.
Okay. There are elections coming up, and there was a lot of conversation that we need to seriously look at other reforms other than economic reforms. It was about UCC. There was conversation about One India, One Poll. Are they necessarily on hold now?
I wouldn't say that. If you look at the BJP's original manifesto, which is the 2014 manifesto, much of what we said we've done. I don't know what the timetable of some of the other reforms there are, but I have now had the privilege of being a minister for 7 years and I've known the party from my university days. BJP never gives up. I mean, the question of calibration on timing is a different thing. That may or may not happen.
Okay, last question, sir. We are seeing now, you've just seen Akhilesh ji travel to Bengal to campaign with Mamta ji. Congress not necessarily invited. Do you see another third front? Because they're not necessarily fans of the Congress either.
No, I've always held that the India alliance is itself an amalgamation which is difficult glue. I've always said that. I mean, one chief minister attends, speaks, and then says she wasn't allowed to speak. Somebody else says something. They're all very active, ambitious politicians, when individually very impressive maybe. But, they're together in order to accept the discipline of an alliance. It's a very different thing.
All right, Hardeep ji, thank you for, as always, a very frank and relaxed conversation, full of plenty of innuendo.
Thank you, Rishabh.
And making us smile, but also
thank you very much.
Energizing. It's always good to have you. Pleasure to have you, Hardeep ji. Let's have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Hardeep Singh Puri ji, for joining us today and, of course, chalking out your vision ahead for the government and your ministry.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.